What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Games Up. My name is Cameron McCulloch-Keeble, and I am your host for this show. This is a special episode of Games Up. You may know, if you listen to the show, that myself and the cast of Games Up very recently went to EGX, the Eurogamer Expo, or EGX Expo, which happens annually in London. While we were there, we played a whole bunch of games, which we talked about in our last show. We also played a whole bunch of indie games, and we talked to a couple of indie developers. So this special episode, the second of our two of coverage from EGX, is a whole bunch of developer interviews, indie developer interviews, done right on the show floor of EGX, so that you, A, get to hear about some awesome games, and B, get to hear that kind of atmosphere and what the show floor of EGX sounds like, and that buzz and vibe that you get from it. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the interviews, and I will leave you in the capable hands of myself and the developers. Thanks for listening. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with the creator, is that fair to say? The creator of, spoiler alert, an independent game, yeah?
What's that?
An indie game, do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, definitely.
An indie game with a bit of a twist, and we're going to ask him a couple of questions about what exactly the game is. So, good sir, hello.
What's that?
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Great.
Firstly, how are you finding EGX?
Awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, we were actually at PAX Prime last month,
right.
But even so, we actually find that we get even more traffic at this venue, so it's been really great. People have been very receptive of the game.
That's cool. So what is the game?
The tagline, I suppose, would be backwards Super Mario. But if I was to elaborate on that, I think I would say that the first thing you actually do in the game is complete it. So within the first minute, you'll have beaten the final boss, rescued the princess, and seen the credits. And then the real fun begins, because then the entire game starts going backwards, and you have to unplay everything that you played. And that means putting back the coins that you collected, unkilling all the enemies that you killed, and even unfiring all the fireballs that you fired.
So where did the idea for the game come from?
What's that?
Where did the idea for the game come from?
Initially, the game was developed at a game jam, and the theme of the game jam was resistance. And most people were thinking very literal, like rebels and friction and stuff like that. For some reason, I was thinking resistance against mainstream in video gaming. And the most mainstream video game concept I could think of was that you always have to complete a game. So what would happen if you have to uncomplete a game?
Okay, cool. So we just played the game right here. It's in front of us. And I've got a couple of questions about the actual playing of it. What made you think about putting it on rails, as it were? What made you think about putting it in a way that the player doesn't control the movement?
Well, because that way it becomes very much a question about timing. And also a big challenge is that you don't know what's coming up ahead, because some mysterious entity has played through the game before you. So a big part of the challenge is that you always have to be aware of what's coming up and react to it in a timely manner. So the only thing you can really control is your jumping and certain things like power-ups and stuff like that. But it's very much a timing and reaction-based game, because it isn't like all other platformers, so we didn't want it to play like all other platformers either.
So knowing that the game was going to be played backwards, did that affect the way you develop puzzles and so on and so forth? Did it make it harder, or did it make it just different?
Well, some of it was pretty natural, because we didn't really invent any new features for the game. The game is basically, honestly, one big rip-off or, parody of Super Mario that uses all the cliche elements that we've seen so many times before. So something like a fireball that is usually a power-up actually naturally becomes an obstacle, because instead of firing the fireball at will, the fireball is launched back towards you and you have to catch it at the correct time. Now, this acts as sort of a puzzle and an obstacle, but it wasn't really something that we designed this way. It came as a natural part of the game design, because it's backwards. So in that sense, we didn't really have to be that, inventive and creative, because the thing that it goes backwards does a lot of the creative work for us.
When is the game out?
Right now, it's already out on Steam for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And all of Amazon's devices, like their Fire TV and the Kindle phones and tablets.
Nice. Is it coming out on anything else?
Yes, so in a week or two from now, we are also launching on Google Play and iOS for everything like tablets and phones. And eventually down the road, we're also launching for Windows 8, Windows Phone 8, BlackBerry, Tyson, and hopefully, if possible, Xbox One, PS4, and some of the Nintendo technologies like the DS.
Nice, that's cool. This would work well on DS. This would be a good game for the DS. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, we actually met a Nintendo guy here at EGX who came by and played the game. And he instantly recognized it as, a tribute and parody of Super Mario. And so he actually said that he would like to talk about getting the game out on, on one of the Nintendo technologies because that would be a natural home for the game. Being a Super Mario platformer parody.
All right, well, we'll call it a day there. Thank you very much and good luck with the game. It's really good fun. Check it out if you have the time. It's on all the platforms he just mentioned. And thanks again. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, yet another indie game to share with you. This time it's Team Junkfish, yeah? It's Team Junkfish's Monstrum. And I'll let the man himself tell you, what is Monstrum?
Hi there. Monstrum is a procedurally generated survivor horror game. You're trapped on this abandoned cargo ship from the 70s and you need to fix up your escape routes by finding stuff that's scattered around about the ship. Unfortunately, you're not alone. There's something that's trying to hunt you down and kill you. So you need to try and outwit and outmaneuver it. You can set traps, you can hide from it, you can lure it away while you patch up whatever escape route you try to escape from.
So how long have you been working on the game?
We've been working on this for almost a year now. So we all graduated from the University of Abertay last summer and we were quite lucky and fortunate to get some funding together to start up Monstrum.
Nice, cool. And Monstrum's your first game?
It's our first sort of proper released game. We've done a lot of, sort of student projects and student challenge projects as well, so first commercial thing, I guess, is one way of putting it.
So what made you go with procedural generation?
When we were originally coming up with the pitch, we sort of came up with, they decided if you did sort of Amnesia meets Binding of Isaac. So we really wanted to try and make a replayable horror game, and that was one of the ways we thought would make it quite easy to do, in a manner of speaking, make it quite replayable. So that's kind of why we sort of stuck in the replayable sort of aspect to it. Procedural generation has its own challenges in that way, but we kind of made it work fairly well so far.
So the ladies and gentlemen listening at home won't notice, but the man playing it at the minute has a massive box strapped to his face. What made you choose Oculus?
It was kind of a matter of convenience more than anything else. One of the guys in the team ended up ordering one for himself just as we were starting development, and we just decided one day to plug it into Unity and see if we could get it working, and it did. So being a first-person horror game, we thought it'd be quite a good fit and just took it further from there.
So are you developing it to be played with or without, or like a mix of both? Like, would you say it's better with Oculus, or would you say it's...
Well, you do not need an Oculus to play it, but from what we've seen, a lot of people seem to prefer playing with the Oculus. They just get that more into the game. They seem to jump and scream a lot more when they get caught by stuff. So I'd say it'd be a good idea to play it with an Oculus if you can, but it's still plenty scary without it.
So working with VR and Oculus Rift, have you learned anything about the way people play video games that like surprised you? Or?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, personally, I'm an audio. I do all the audio stuff, so a lot of that's important anyway because of the horror aspect. But having to make sure if they hear something and they turn to hear it, it's actually still coming from that location. Having the sort of surround sound aspects of it, the sort of 3D localization, is a big part of making people feel like they are actually in the game themselves. Outside of that, the sort of challenges like UI and sort of menu placement and all that sort of stuff that we've had to come across as well.
And it's only playable on Rift at the minute here, but what is it? Is it with Crystal Cove, is it, Dev 2?
We've only got DK1. We're waiting on our DK2 arriving, so hopefully we'll get that updated once we've got it, and we'll be able to push out sort of a compatibility update to, well, we'll hopefully have it in when we launch the game. So
speaking of that, when does the game launch?
We're looking to launch the game at the end of January in 2015, so a few months away.
Lovely. And what platforms do you plan to have it on?
We're looking at a Windows launch, so we'll be on Steam, Humble Bundle, GOG initially. We're hoping to do our Mac and Linux ports quickly soon after that. Then, depending on how well it does, we're going to try and do sort of PS4, Xbox ports if we get the opportunity.
Now, obviously, PlayStation has the PlayStation Morpheus. Do you think that could be an avenue you guys go down?
Well, we'd love to try it. I mean, one of the programmers managed to play it with it over at GDC this year, and she was really impressed by it. So if we get the opportunity to go to PS4 and use Morpheus, we'd really like to.
Lovely. And how is your time at EGX being?
Sore.
Sore?
Yeah, throat hurts, feet hurt, but it's great. It's just great to see how people respond to the game and how everybody sort of reacts to all the little things that we've put in it. So, yeah, it's been good.
Cool, lovely. So the game is Monstrum and it comes out in January. Steam, as you said. Anything else we should know about it?
Not really, just be afraid.
Nice. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Team Junkfish, and they were showing us and talking to you about Monstrum. Keep an eye out, as he said, it's out in late January. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, yet another interview. We are here with the developers of
Eminence, Xanders Tales.
Eminence, Xanders Tales. So, tell us about the game. What is it? What do you do?
Essentially what Eminence Xanders Tales is, it's an RPG, an MMO RPG, with a battle system which is actually a card game. So you can explore the world as you would any other RPG, create your character, fully customizable, meet either NPCs to battle against in the story mode, or meet other players that are either doing the storyline themselves or just chilling in the world, challenge them to a card game.
Nice, cool. So, what gave you the idea for the game? Where did it sort of come from?
Well, actually, it's pretty funny. One of the other directors as well, who's the artist, and myself used to write RPG scripts when we were kids. And this actually began as a story. You know, we got together one weekend and we really wanted to create a story that explored very dark themes, which is sort of reflects in the RPG side of the game. So you can sort of do the quest to advance the story and try and save the world. That's on the brink of destruction. But what happened, right, we just got together and we ironed out this plot in a weekend, and John got involved as well, helped us refine the story, and the guys created some very unique artwork. You know, the artwork that you see on the cards is a combination of both of their visual design skills. So once we created that, we felt like we were onto something. Then we started looking at the core mechanics and we started looking at how this can become sort of a card game, mixing in different elements like the MMO and an RPG as well.
So that's a big thing, like an MMO and a card game. How do you guys plan to pull it off?
Well, just work our butts off.
Nice.
Well, essentially what we're doing is we're actually a Kickstarter campaign. Okay. So at the moment we're sitting about 60% of the way through our funding. So once we get funding, hopefully we can use that to make the game.
So what made you choose Kickstarter?
I think at the time we were just sort of exploring what was the most efficient way for us to sort of raise funding and have people involved, and Kickstarter is sort of that platform. I mean, player feedback is really important for us, and since releasing this, Kickstarter provides a sort of a platform where you can create a dialogue between potential players, and you know we've heard some amazing feedback through that. It's not the only sort of be all end all kind of. There are other ways, but for us, we felt like Kickstarter was sort of appropriate at the time.
So where do you hope the game will end up? You know, do you want it to be on Steam? Do you want it to be on mobile? What's your plans for it?
Well, what we're looking at the moment is launching the game on iOS and Android. So iPhones, iPads, and Android phones and tablets as well. We also have the game on Mac and PC, and we have stretch goals in our Kickstarter which will help us put it off for consoles as well.
Any consoles in particular, or is that kind of in the air for the minute?
It's still a little bit in the air, but obviously we can't avoid sort of the big PS4, Xbox, and actually we want to get the game onto Ouya as well. Yeah.
That's a name that not many people speak about these days. That's a big thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Ouya is sort of like bringing this still aiming to bring this revolution in micro consoles. And I know there's a lot of other ones springing about, like Nvidia had their own one, Amazon too. It's just another avenue to just spread the game to more players, really.
Well, that's cool. There's got to be people on the Ouya who want something to play. That's a good idea. So, what are your roles in developing the game, or are there many?
Well, my particular role is as the game designer. I act in collaboration with the art director, the creative director, Petros Afshar, and we work together in creating the card designs of the game. Personally, I also do the the overworld of the game, a lot of the concept art, the character designs as well.
Myself, I am actually responsible for writing the scenario writing and story aspect of the RPG, just kind of working on new quests and things like that, and also do the programming too.
Oh wow! So fairly busy then.
Yeah, doing a bit of everything really.
Nice. And how are you finding your time at EGX?
Awesome. It's our first time being to one of these events on the other side,
right.
And it's just so surreal. Would you say the same thing?
Yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. I mean, this is actually our first game, and like David said, it's our first time being here as developers, and being here as a developer is completely different from being here as a gamer. So it's been wicked.
Cool. So when do you plan to have the game out in theory?
Release date?
Release date, release window, release year,
Release
whatever's
window.
good.
We're hoping to deliver the game in sort of like, well, not I wouldn't call it stages. For instance, we're trying to release a beta first just to open it up and get feedback, and we're aiming to get that done by next year summertime, depending on how things go.
Okay, well, thank you very much for talking to us. Ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye out for that game. And that was Eminence, Xanders Tales. Cheers, gents.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our final indie game of the sort of indie game show is Calvino Noir. And I'm here with one of the developers, so I'll leave you to it. What is Calvino Noir?
Calvino Noir is the film noir heist game. It's you're this character Wilt, you're a war deserter, you're set in the 1930s Europe, specifically Austria, Vienna. Borrows a lot from various film noir. The Third Man's a bit of an influence, that 1950s, we've gone a little bit early, we've gone into war. So the character, he's a deserter, he can't go home because he's wanted for desertion, and he is ended up working kind of the criminal underground. He's somewhere between a hired thug and a professional thief.
Right.
And the game starts, and it's a 2.5D game, platformer, and you accepting a job, and you go to meet someone about a job, and they say, well, we want you to steal a document from the town hall. And on this job, the person who's helping you ends up double-crossing you, and you end up left for dead in this really terrible situation. And you spend the rest of the game kind of trying to get out of this awful situation, only for it to carry on getting worse and come down a spiral. So the gameplay has three elements. It's your exploring the world, unlocking environments, unlocking areas, discovering the narrative, and then there's the sneaking element where you are sneaking past guards, you're sneaking into high security environments, crawling with guards, finding documents or evidence or completing your objectives. That kind of obviously weaves into the narrative. And then there's a little bit of fighting as well, there's a little bit of combat where the game's very sandboxed in that sense. There's always more than one route, there's always more than one way to do something, and you've got multiple characters at your disposal. As you go through the story, you get control of extra characters, and so you might have a weapon with one character, but then the ammo's limited. Obviously, if you were to shoot someone, it would make a loud noise, it would alert other guards, so you really only want to use it as a last resort, or you want to use it strategically. So it's a kind of a very, very thoughtful game. The art style is kind of very, very central to the game. It's mixing this architectural perspective section where it's cut through. Big fan of architectural drawings, and there's a quality to the lighting and the way light's used that it's very diagrammatic and very explanatory. And then we've married that with film noir, which is a lot more romantic, a lot more theatrical. And it's about kind of capturing the romance of that.
So the people at home won't be able to hear as we have no won't be able to see, even as we have no camera here. But the game looks absolutely gorgeous. What elements of film noir did you allow to affect the art style? What kind of directly inspired the game from film noir, if that makes sense?
I think it's the dramatic lighting that's gone in. We've got the real-time spotlights where as you're walking around, you have a torch and it shines ahead of you, and it's there's God rays on that, and it lights up. The environment's very dark. It's always raining outside. It's always nighttime. There's loads of mist and fog rolling through the environments, and it's shown to you as cut through the buildings and kind of like a building section kind of style, but in perspective. And as you move, as perspective moves, and there's a lot of richness and detail in the environments. In the start of the game, you go into this restaurant. There's people in the restaurant. You go upstairs, and there's a little jazz bar, and the ambient of the sound changes as well. It's kind of there's no music to the game as such, except for in the ambience. It's kind of like a soundscape as you travel through. You start in a echoey tunnel with the rain in the distance, and as you come out of the tunnel, the rain becomes a much sharper and crisper sound. It's all around you, and then you go into the restaurants, and there's bustling, and there's people talking in the background, and upstairs the jazz club, and there's this little jazz band upstairs. So the audio design's really been fun to work with as well.
So how long have you been working on the game?
Actually not that long, and since April, but we're very, very fast developers, so we are due out around the end of the year.
Oh wow, so that's a really quick development cycle then.
Yeah, it's been a fast cycle, but we've been looking. The whole team really just got behind it, and the artists particularly have worked really, really hard.
So what's the game coming out on?
Sorry?
What platforms is the game launching on?
So it's Steam and iOS. So on Steam, it's Windows and Mac, and iOS obviously. So 2 launch platforms certainly, and we may look at extra platforms later on.
Are those platforms sort of up in the air, or do you know what you might want to expand onto?
We've got ideas, but right now we're really not allowing ourselves to do anything but just focus on our initial release.
So the game comes out towards the end of the year, and Steam, you said?
On Steam and iOS.
Steam and iOS. Perfect. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Calvino Noir. Genuinely, if you're a fan of film noir, check it out. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up our coverage of EGX 2014. Thank you very much to everybody who listened, to all the developers who let us play their games, and who interviewed us. I'm really sorry to the people making Eminence that I said the name wrong a couple of times. It looks like a really cool game. And thank you, most of all, for listening and keeping us going here. We hope to do this again next year at EGX 2015. But until then, normal Games Up service will resume very shortly. Thank you very much for sticking with us. But for this week, and for this year at EGX, the game's up.